The way I describe it is it's my mood thermostat is faulty. So whereas yours is set at normal, mine will be high. I have short periods when I'm very high, I'm very overactive, over-talkative, I don't sleep, I do projects. And then I have very lows, and that for me is more of a problem, where I have severe depression. I'm very, very tearful, I can't get out of bed, and that side of my illness I find very debilitating. And that's my personal experience. Bipolar varies a lot, but that's how it affects me. Some people have psychotic episodes where they imagine they've got special powers. They might imagine that they can fly, or they're God, or those sort of things that aren't actually in reality. Luckily I don't have any of that. Some people, alcohol is very linked with. Again, I don't have an alcohol problem. Some people have more highs than lows. So, yeah, those are really the main differences. What happens is that people tend to be hospitalised when it's either a very high or a very low. And I think that's what people see. They don't actually realise that a lot of people are just carrying on fairly normal lives, but with this mood swing going on.
How old were you when you first realised that you had bipolar disorder?
That's quite an interesting question, because on average it takes 10 years to get correct diagnosis for bipolar.
Really?
Quite often the depression is recognised, but people with bipolar tend to hide their highs, and also they think they're actually very well, when in fact they're ill. So looking back, I think my bipolar started when I was 11, but it wasn't diagnosed till I was about 20 something. The depressions were very, very clear at about 18 when I first went away to university, but the bipolar wasn't diagnosed till about 20. Yeah. So I was given medication for the depression, and I used to have various months of the year when I just had a very good time, and nobody really realised that I was high during that time.
Gosh. So what is the general treatment, the usual course of treatment now for?
The usual course is that you're put on medication called mood stabilisers, and there are 3 or 4 of those, and then on top of that they will give you either an antidepressant or something that brings you down. So the guidelines are that you should only really be on 2 medications, but in a lot of cases that isn't so. One of the problems with bipolar as well is insomnia, so a lot of people have to take sleep medication as well. And it's lifetime medication, I think that's the important thing. And it's very, very tempting when you are well, and particularly when you're high, you think, I don't need medication, you stop, and then you come crashing down. And there are a lot of side effects with medications as well. One of the main ones is weight gain. Huge weight gain with a lot of the medications that are used today.
What about complementary therapies?
Yeah, that's that thing. Yeah, definitely things like meditation and relaxation, mindfulness. I have actually had aromatherapy, and I did find that quite helpful. I think quite a few people do have hypnotherapy that works. I mean, I self-manage. I do take medication, but I self-manage my illness, and it's things like being very sensitive to your triggers, very sensitive to your early warning signs, and that can either be you actually recognising them, or people that are close sometimes recognising them, and starting to take some action then, so that you don't become much more ill. A lot of it is just sensible living, really, and diet. I know if I get very stressed about things, that's likely to cause mood swing. Things like jet lag, it's well known that causes mood swings, so I don't tend to go away for long journeys anywhere. And support networks. I've got a very good support network. Quite a few friends have got bipolar, and all those help me to keep well. I think you can have a very reasonable quality of life. I think one of the things is being very aware of it, and the other thing is accepting it. Yes. I think acceptance is a huge. and also that you can help other people that have got it. There's this thing about lived experience, and I think it is only somebody that's got bipolar that can really help another person that's got it, because we're the only people that have really experienced that. And I think for carers, it's a particularly difficult illness.
What would your advice be to people who are caring for somebody with bipolar?
I think a lot of support all the time. My husband actually went on a course for friends and family, and what he hadn't realised is he thought I was just sort of high or low. He didn't realise that a lot of the year I'm just not that well, so I'll have a sort of minor low. So that was something that he found useful. Living with somebody that's got insomnia, the carer, how they're going to cope with that, because a lot of carers have got full-time jobs. We actually sleep in separate beds a lot of the time, so that he gets a decent night's sleep. So again, it's sort of common sense, and having a decent enough rapport to be able to say, I don't think you're that well at the moment, Helen, and sort of working together with that, working together against the illness, I suppose.
And I suppose not taking personally
Yeah.
anything that might occur as a result of the behaviour.
Yes, yeah. And I think the other thing is that the carer really doesn't get any support from the services. It's the person who's got the illness gets support. And I think that's very difficult. The carer very often isn't kept in the loop. What medication changes, appointments, what treatments are going to be happening. So I think that again is very difficult.
How do you feel that you've been that you are supported by the mental health services and all the services around?
At the moment, I think it's very poor, and I think the difficulty with bipolar is if you see a psychiatrist sort of once every 6 months, the chances are that psychiatrist won't have seen you high, low and well. So very difficult for them to assess what's going on. So for instance, they see me as I am today, well, there's nothing wrong with you. And unless they monitor very regularly, which doesn't happen in the NHS mental health services at the moment, they're not really going to get the full picture of what's going on. I think that really is one of the major problems. And similarly, if your medication is changed, you often don't then see the psychiatrist for quite a long time. And you'll be struggling with a medication that doesn't suit you, having sort of strange side effects. And also it does have an impact on your life, and I think it's important that you have some opportunity to talk about that. There is a lot of loss in your life due to the illness, and that, strictly speaking, well, with the NHS that isn't part of their package. If you want to talk about the psychological effects the illness has on you, you have to find help from elsewhere.
And I imagine that's tough to do when you're feeling really bad. I'm wondering if you feel kind of isolated sometimes.
Definitely. And that's where I belong to the local bipolar self-help group, and that's where that comes into its own, that we are very, very supportive of each other. We would be able to approach each other any time of day or night, and accept that when one of us is ill, we need to talk about how we feel. And we're talking to people that really understand. And also the level of support, it's very difficult to gauge when somebody's very depressed, whether you actually should be going around phoning them, sending cards. Whereas if you've actually got the illness, you sort of gauge it. Somehow you know that maybe they just need a phone call once a week, or just a card sent, so they know you're thinking about them, but actually they don't want to speak to you.
So how can people support you if you're feeling down?
I think just being there and letting you know that they're there, whatever level that you require. So that might be just, say, letting you know that they are at the end of the phone if you need them. Or for my husband, he just gets on and he does the practical things, so he knows he's got to do the shopping, the cooking, and he just gets on and he accepts those sort of things. And sort of an air of positiveness all the way through, that you will come out of this and you will be okay, and then you'll be back to fairly normal life. And the highs can be very good fun, which is quite strange for an illness, that there actually are some very good times with the illness, which may be good times for you, but maybe not for the people around you. Some people, I've got friends that can't cope with me when I'm high. and quite often your carer finds it much more difficult to cope with you when you're high, because you start to interfere with things, you become a little bit over-assertive, whereas when you're depressed you don't really do anything, you're not interfering with anything, you're much easier to manage in a lot of ways with a carer when you're depressed. So I think, again, with bipolar, to have the two extremes to care for, very, very difficult. You do know that you will get better, you do know that there's a light at the end of the tunnel on some level, even when you're actually in the tunnel, and you do have to adopt a philosophy, if you like, that you make hay while the sun shines, and when you're well, long may it last. You know that it won't last possibly for that long, but that's the way you have to live, and that's your way of coping with bipolar, I think. Everybody I know who's actually has a reasonable life with bipolar, they're very positive people, and they don't dwell on the negative. Very, very difficult when you are down that tunnel. But there is something that I always know, I will come out the tunnel. I don't know how long it'll be.